Hello and welcome to the 13th of Friday, episode 4. This time I'm joined, as always, by Grayson Turner.
Hey, glad to be here.
And two special guests this time, Mr. Eli Go Get It Cardi.
Good to be back.
And Reece Turner, no relation.
It's been a while.
So obviously, we have more people here than we had last time, which was more people than the time before that. So next episode, we're going to have 3 people, presumably, at this rate. And I guess before we start, it's probably important to note that Eli and Reece, let me just clarify, have you seen any of these movies before tonight?
I have not.
So this is a new stage of our journey where not only have Grayson and I now only seen the later entries, but we have 2 people here who have seen none of the entries and have been thrust right into the middle. So this was certainly an experience, I would say.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
This one's going to be harder than some of our prior episodes just because this movie really can't be summarized. Take it away, Grayson, if you have any thoughts here.
It was just it was a mess from start to finish. Summarizing it's going to be a little tough, but it definitely starts off having assumed that you've watched the previous 3 movies. It starts off with Kristen, I believe, is the first character you meet, and you see Freddy's house, which we've seen in the later entries, and of course it's a dream sequence that starts it off. But the movie seems to have this incredibly weird pace that makes summarizing it does feel weird. Things jump around. It's hard to feel what was important, but it does start off with some characters. I think Kristen dies fairly early on, as does Kincaid and Joey, 2 more characters, which you later learn was the original trio that defeated him in the 3rd movie. So spoilers for next episode when we learn that for sure. But beyond that, it evolves very quickly. Tyler or Eli or Reece, I'm not sure you guys remember who was the first kill, but it's kind of eluding me.
It's Kincaid. I think it's right after Freddy comes back. But just let me introduce that real quick. Is that Freddy's dead from the 3rd movie, but he comes back because Kincaid's dog, whose name, he had like a funny name. It's like Jason. Yeah. His dog Jason, in a dream, like pisses on the ground. He pisses fire, and the fire brings Freddy back to life
from hell, presumably.
Presumably from hell. In the dream sequence, his like bones come back together and his flesh forms on top of him. It's a cool effect, given that the rest of the movie is like batshit insane.
I guess if I'm trying to, from the most basic like outline of the plot, ignoring the details, right, that are just like a mess. The last child of the people that killed Freddy, there's only one left by like fairly early in the movie, and Freddy uses her and kills her, but like uses her to basically be able to like get to some other teenagers in the town to try and like continue his mayhem. Like I feel like that's the most basic way I could.
Yeah, I think that is a fairly good basic outline.
But Eli, you had a good observation as we were watching it about like the pacing here that I feel like was pretty apt.
Yeah, no, I had described it as like I was watching the movie through TikToks. I mean, there's just no cohesion between any of the scenes, and they don't tell you in any way like why you're there or like how everything is important. And it just feels like we're missing scenes. Like they've taken out key scenes and put in random new ones that just make no sense to the overall plot.
Yeah, which turned out to be true. Like this is the first time we were watching this not just on HBO, and so we had some special features that we decided to watch. And like as we're watching the movie, we're like, wow, this feels really like half-assed and like thrown together. And then all the special features are just people working on it that are like, yeah, this thing sucked and was half-assed and thrown together, which included a writer's strike and like them filming shit before they even had anything written.
In the words of the director, it was a chaotic time.
It's always a good sign.
Yeah, every interviewed member, I really wish we could include the special features in our overall rating of the movie because it made the movie a more enjoyable experience having watched them. I think every person involved, from the screenwriter to the director to the producer, just had something awful to say about it, and it seemed like they were almost trying to distance themselves from it, but they almost took a weird sort of joy in like insulting it as well.
They cut to the producer, or like the New Line Cinema executive at one point, and he was just like bashing it, or he's like, like when they first came to me, I didn't trust the director, I didn't think he could do it, and the script, I didn't like any of the ideas, like all this stuff. And I kept waiting for the moment where he's like, but in the end, it really turned into something beautiful. And then there wasn't that. It just cut to a different interview after he was just like finished dumping on it.
No, it was pretty horrible. I've never seen a movie that was like, we know our movie sucks so bad that we have to like make a special features to defend it and like try to explain why it's so bad. I feel like if you have to make that in the first place, you probably just shouldn't make the movie. Like, that just should not be published at all. Or
They're admitting it too. They're like, yeah, the third one was really popular, so we knew we had to make a fourth one, and the fourth one made a bunch of money, even though it was really bad. So.
The fourth one made the most amount of money out of all of them, I believe, at the time, and I think even going forward, I think it made more than 5 and 6.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think I remember the other ones after this, like in some of our.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the fact that this made that much money is actually. Do you have a number on that? How much money it made?
It made about $49 million on a budget of $6.5 million.
Wow, that's
okay. Do we want to give like a real overarching summary real quick, just so we can get our listeners?
I don't even know how we can start that.
Okay, let's just take a crack at it real quick.
Try your best.
Hey, let's start with the characters. I feel like that's the.
You're right.
Okay, that's a good point. So. You have Kristen, Kincaid, and Joey, which are the original trio from the third film.
Yes.
Or so we're led to believe. And then you have Rick, who is Kristen's boyfriend, and Alice.
In love with his sister.
Alice, who is Rick's sister. And they do have a weird dynamic. You get the feeling that those actors may have been dating behind the scenes. There's also Sheila, which is a very nerdy girl with asthma. Debbie, who I guess her whole thing is that she doesn't like insects, but that's not really.
Wrong. She's like,
yeah, she does work out.
Cockroach, yeah, and then she every scene she mentions that I've got to work out, or I was just working out.
Yeah, she does mention working out in every scene, and she kills one bug, so very important plot points. You also have
Was it Dan is the lover for Alice?
Who's Alice's crush, and it's just kind of a big, hunky, tall guy who's kind of a himbo, I guess is how I describe him.
Dan was a himbo.
Those are the main ones. You also have Alice's dad and mom, which are kind of tangentially.
Well, Alice's dad and
Kristen's mom. Kristen's mom, correct? Yeah.
And also,
so those are all the real characters.
According
Freddy.
to the Wikipedia page, Linnea Quigley as Soul from Freddy's chest. So that's a crucial character worth mentioning.
Okay, so if you can keep track of all those characters,
well,
you have the original trio.
I mean, I do think that's a good place to start, just in terms of like why this movie's kind of confusing. Like, we can certainly go through the plot a bit, but like there's just a lot of characters and we aren't really given a lot of time with any of them, so it made it very hard to like keep track of all these people and how they all connected to each other, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah, well, there's no like central story.
No.
You know, like there's no real progression that makes sense within the plot, so it's like hard to tell a summary of a story that doesn't really exist.
We follow Kristen for, I would say, like the first half of the movie. She's kind of the lead, and her, again, the two characters that were in the previous movie get killed in pretty quick succession, and so she, is trying to figure out how to stop Freddy, and she's terrified because she knows he's back. But then quite suddenly, out of nowhere, about halfway-ish through, he just manages to kill her in her dream, in which she summons her friend Alice for help, and Alice kind of, out of nowhere, becomes our main character, like, 30, 40 minutes into the film, I would say? Midway point. And from there, we follow Alice and Dan, Debbie, and Rick.
Rick.
Yeah, Rick.
Who are kind of our lead for And I guess Sheila too sort of counts in that.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that summarizing this movie is so difficult is it does change halfway through, and the three characters that you're introduced to at the beginning are supposed to be the main characters. Two of them die within the first 15 minutes.
Yeah. So Alice's friends then, when they're killed off very quickly too, we don't really have a lot of time with them. So as opposed to some of the other movies where like each death was kind of memorable because of like, oh yeah, that person was in most of the movie. It's like, okay, I saw this person for 2 minutes and Sheila died. Like, doesn't really mean a lot to me as a viewer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so maybe we can run through like the deaths of her friends, because I think they're kind of interesting.
That's probably the best way to summarize the movie, actually, because those are.
It's really, if the movie kind of feels like a summary, and like all the scenes just like jump from scene to scene without any like filler in between.
They
wrote a story and then they wrote a summary and based the whole movie off of that summary.
Exactly.
They filmed 6 teenagers getting killed, and then we're just like, let's just edit those together in some fashion.
Freddy's real and he killed him in real life, and then just filmed it and watched.
Yeah. So I guess in order, Reese, I'll let you handle Kincaid. I feel like you have a lock on this one. That's the first
so
death in the movie.
Kincaid dies in this like car. It's like a junkyard that they zoom out and reveal it's like a planet-sized junkyard. So he sees Freddy come back again from the fire dog piss, and then he like shouts, "Freddy's back," and it just like cuts right to like Freddy's like holding him, and then he stabs him. Like directly, it has this like zoom out shot of the whole junkyard, and it cuts immediately to him dying. There's like nothing in between of him. Like he like kind of looks around for him, but it doesn't like actually find him. It just cuts to him being right there. He stabs him, and then it goes to the like him being awake, and he kind of like shakes for a bit and then dies.
Not to get quite into the rankings yet, but I feel like we'd all agree this was towards the bottom, right? Like this is.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just sudden and uninteresting. So that's the first death we see, and again, that's one of Kristen's friends from the third movie. And then
one of the original trio.
Yeah, and after Kincaid, we get. Is that Joey's death? Is that his name?
Joey.
Too many male names. Grayson, I know you like this one, so I'll let you.
Yes, this was a great. Honestly, this is definitely one of my more favorite deaths of the movie. Joey's in his room, listening to music, has the TV on, and he's on a waterbed, which is not immediately apparent. And he has a poster of some swimsuit model. It was some actress, I believe. And he feels like the waterbed shaking, and he pulls back the sheet to reveal it's the model from his poster, naked, now under the water in his waterbed. And of course, he looks back up at the poster, and she's gone. The model's gone. And the model turns into Freddy, slashes through the waterbed, drags him into it, and then drowns him in the waterbed. I think he actually dies by stabbing. I'm pretty sure that's how the actual death, and then leaves his body in there. But somehow Freddy re-seals the waterbed, so it's completely sealed with Joey's body in there, just facing up. So his mom finds it, and his mom pulls back the cover, and there he is, eyes open, bloated body, looking up. And it's a pretty unique kill. I thought it was kind of an interesting way for them to do it.
Yeah, I like that one. It was creative, though it does. Was actually, now that I think about it, was the water bloody when the mom found it?
No,
I think it's clear.
Water was clear.
It was only in this dream that it was bloody.
So maybe the stabbing was actually in the dream. The drowning was actually
what happened in the yeah.
Mm.
How does the dream world work? We may never know.
We've been watching these movies for a while now, and we still have no great
idea.
grasp of it.
So after Joey, it's Kristen, who again I feel like had a pretty anticlimactic death for.
Yeah, although before she dies, she's in the hospital and she sees Freddy in drag.
Yeah,
that is true. I forgot about that. Freddy, well,
as a nurse,
Freddy, as Robert.
Human Freddy. It was Robert Englund, which he looked. I mean.
Yeah, what's that, Grayson? You want to elaborate on that comment?
Wait, let me think real quick, because it is like, yeah, it's Robert Englund in drag. didn't realize it's Robert Englund at first, and then it like cuts to her. She's awake, and it's like a woman who looks like Robert Englund in drag.
That's what I was going to say.
I feel like for the casting call, they must have just gotten like tried to get a woman who looked like Robert Englund in drag. That was like the thing they were looking for.
Maybe they were
They did a good
related or
job.
something. It was like
They
a
did a good job.
sister or cousin or something. Like, let's get you in here.
Gotta check that.
But yeah, Kristen ends up. I'm trying to think. Does she just get stabbed too? This one's kind of fuzzy in my head, but Oh
Yeah.
no, Kristen gets.
She gets thrown in the oven.
She gets.
Boiler, I think it is.
Yeah, they're.
In the boiling fire water.
Yep, they're in again kind of a construction-y industrial factory in her dream world, and she summons her friend. What the hell was her name? Alice, into the dream, who then witnesses Kristen get thrown into this boiler with just water that's on fire, and she, just kind of burns to death in it. You see she looks all scarred and burned, and it was just, I don't know, to me that one felt pretty anti-climactic for who's kind of our lead for the first half of the movie.
I haven't seen a movie do that before, where it spends the first half killing off the main characters from the previous movie. But I guess that's supposed to give the viewer a sense of, oh no, like desperation and everything's
Here.
hopeless. But
Yeah. And then, so let's see. So Kristen dies, and then we sort of focus on Alice at that point, who her friends then start getting killed off. And Eli, I will let you take Sheila's death, who is the next one, I believe.
Yeah. So in Sheila's dream, they're in the middle of class and they're taking a test, and that's when they like end up in the dream world somehow, and Sheila starts getting a bloody nose, and it falls onto her paper. It starts to turn into letters, and I can't remember what it said. I think it was like Freddy's back or something.
Freddy's class is fun, or something about.
Yeah, like learning is fun or something. Yeah. And then he like reaches through the blood and starts like trying to pull her in. And while all of this is happening, Alice is like in the dream world with her, and she's like witnessing Sheila get taken by Freddy, but she's like stuck in her desk and she can't help her, so she has to sit there and watch. And after Freddy tries to pull her in, and she kind of like gets away, so he comes up out of the blood puddle and just starts sucking out of like her soul through her mouth, and you just see like this really shriveled up ragdoll slowly come to reality in Freddy's hands, and then he just disappears back into the blood puddle and just leaves Alice with this dried up,
husk of a thing.
Sheila.
Yeah, no, that one I think was pretty, at least in terms of effect wise, I liked it. It was quite disturbing how you could see like her skin get all shriveled in, right? Like the veins.
Yeah, no, it looked
prominently.
Looked really good, especially for like 1988, where there's no CGI or anything. This was all done with just like props and camera tricks.
So Sheila's killed, and then is it Rick or Debbie next? I'm trying to remember.
I think it's Rick.
I think it's Rick.
Yeah, Rick goes first, who's her boyfriend, and I feel like this one's, for me, was the worst, but just very anticlimactic. Like, he's in a dream doing karate, because that's his thing, apparently. He's a big weeaboo kind of guy, I guess. And Freddy shows up and is invisible and just starts beating the hell out of him. He starts fighting back. He knocks Freddy's glove off, and then the glove just flies through the air and stabs him, and then he's dead, and that's it. So that one kind of just happened very quick. He's didn't get a lot of time to shine. And then we're left with, at that point, it's literally just Alice and Debbie are the only people around. And Reese, I'll let you take Debbie's, because this was the most, for me, like visually disturbing.
Yeah, Debbie's was fucking freaky. So the the cockroach thing, it's like literally one scene of her, like she gets like a giant cockroach on her chip, and so she throws the chip down at like the beginning of the movie, and she stomps on the cockroach. And also like her huge thing is lifting. So she's lifting this like 10-pound barbell. There's like no weight on the thing. she's lifting up and down, and then Freddy like appears and pushes down on it until like her arms like
her
bend
elbows.
backwards, and and like her elbows like snap, and her arms fall off, and there's a shot of like her arms like bloody on the floor, and then cockroach limbs like grow out of her arms, and then I'm trying to think, what happens to like, oh no, she's like running around, she falls on this fly paper like face down, and then as she's like getting up, her like skin falls off of her face, and her like head is a cockroach head, and so eventually she's just like a full cockroach.
Roach.
And then it like and then it zooms out to Freddy, and he's holding this like box of you can't see inside the box, but it's like it fits in the palm of his hand.
It Roach Motel on the side of it.
Yeah. And so he squishes it, and like this like roach blood kind of gushes out. It's real freaky.
Yeah, that was. I mean, it's been a few months since we watched the last one, and then there's been a gap between all of us doing this. But to me, that might have been the like most gross out one to me, where like I could physically like feel myself like cringing as like her, especially as her arms snapped with the barbell pushing down.
Yeah. Especially the rest of the kills like before that were pretty tame, honestly. And
Yeah. I mean, you go from some guy just getting stabbed to like her elbows snapping off her body.
Yeah, it was really cool effects. I mean, some modern movies don't even look as good as that did.
Well, I like too when she was turning into the roach, like the progression of it. Like first she's just like stumbling around with the roach legs, and then her arms, and then the head, and you could still see like her human legs on the bottom as like the roach body is like her whole top half. It was cool. I was impressed by that one.
Yeah.
And then that just leaves Freddy, who, I guess before we get to the death, Grayson, can you summarize the Dream Master thing as best you gathered?
Oh boy! So that is the name of the movie. The name of the movie is Nightmare on Elm Street: The Dream Master. And there is this one scene in the school where they're in this psychology class, I guess. It wasn't exactly clear what kind of class it was.
Dream class.
It was a dream class. And the teacher's droning on, but he has on the screen he has these like 3 bullet points, and one is like it's talking about like some philosopher talking about dreams. The second one is like advanced dreamers can control the dreams, and like the third one is Dream Master like own the dreams or something. And so I guess throughout the entire, while her friends are dying, while Alice's friends are dying, she's like gaining characteristics of her friends. So Debbie, the strong girl, gives her this bracelet that she puts on, and she gets a headband from her brother Rick, which has like the old Japanese flag on it. And so in the end, where she enters the dream world and she becomes the Dream Master herself, where she has all of the characteristics of her friends, and apparently she's mastered the dream enough that she can control it. And so apparently she is the Dream Master. And I think there was actually a rhyme. There was like a nursery rhyme.
Yeah.
Called the Dream Master that I think she says at the end. But it was really hard to gather it without paying a lot of attention, kind of like we have to for this.
Very early in the movie, I think she said something about it too. I want to say like.
Yeah, Alice was talking to Kristen about it.
She's like, oh.
Kristen was like, oh, how do you get rid of the nightmares? And Alice was like, oh, you just control your dreams,
They say there's a dream
control
master.
them like a master, yeah. It was like, that's like what her mom used to tell her or something, and so.
Yeah, there was some, so like, it wasn't really a through line though, right? Like it was just kind of a thing that showed up when needed.
Yeah, it seems like it was like supposed to be a pretty pivotal plot point, like something that they kind of developed over the story, but there were just like small mentions of it. And honestly, even at the scene where it becomes relevant and they kind of use it to take down Freddy, you still don't really know if that's what it really is.
what's
Like she just
happening.
shines a ball of light and it kind of like kills him. So you don't really understand why
What?
she's now become the Dream Master. You don't really know what that means. Like you're just left to kind of guess.
When she mentioned it at the start, I was wondering if there was going to be some kind of like anti-Freddy, you know, like some other thing that's in your dreams, right? That's like it would help them stop him or something. And
The only thing to take down a Freddy is another Freddy.
Freddy 2, Electric Boogaloo. Yeah, and so at the end, basically, she, through the powers of her dead friends, and becoming a dream master, which may also have to do with, she has like some daydreams a few times throughout the movie, which I think we're maybe trying to show that like she kind of has some level of control over her daydreaming on things. So like maybe that gives her control over her actual dream as well. But for some reason she uses part of a piece of broken stained glass, which she shines at Freddy, and it slowly, all these souls that he's killed and absorbed over the years, whose faces are like literally on his chest and body, they start like pushing out of him. So suddenly all these arms start pushing through his body, and you could see faces pushing out of his chest, and the arms all kind of go up and like break his jaw, I guess, in half, and then he sort of explodes into a light, and there's just a pile of Freddy clothes on the ground. But it was a very impressive effect, even if the lead up to it kind of made no sense at all and had no connection to anything, it felt, at least from my perspective.
I think that's pretty good.
I felt like the movie was just like built around the kills.
Yeah. Which is a weird, like, I'm sure they all were to some extent, right? Like, you know, the ones prior that Grayson and I have watched, the kills were definitely the most fun, like, creative parts, right? Like, they were scary or weird or whatever. So I'm sure to some extent it's like, okay, we want these to happen. Let's kind of work around that. But it really felt, and then obviously sounded like through the features we watched, that literally was the case here, and they just didn't really get to build anything around them. They just kind of had to
Like
work
had them, yeah.
with what they had.
They had all of the kill scenes, but they didn't have any of the like character development scenes or any of the connection scenes.
No.
So, and it sounds like it was so rushed that they kind of were just like, I don't know, just this sounds good enough, and just put it in a scene, and it somehow felt like it would connect.
Well, and at the end, there's like this very triumphant, like, you know, she uses all these little mementos from her friends that have died. She like puts them on before she takes some sleeping pills to like go into the dream world. And it, you know, it's set up with music and all this stuff. Like, this is a real, like, yeah, like, oh look, she's putting on her brother's karate equipment and Debbie's like shackle bracelet or whatever you'd want to call it, spike belt or whatever it was. But like, as a viewer, you really have no like, you're not attached to any of those things, because all her friends, you never really got to see them be friends or interact or be close or whatever. So like, it didn't, as much as the movie treats it like this big, like, oh yeah, look what she's putting on moment, it's not, doesn't land really in that way beyond the movie telling you to kind of think that, which I think just speaks to the whole rush nature of it.
Yeah, I feel like there's just, it's so open-ended, it's hard to understand what they really, what the story was they're trying to tell. Like, are they trying to say that like they're using the power of friendship? Is it because she's like the Dream Master? And then she even starts talking about how like she could like feel her friends dying, and like she was kind of absorbing them.
But like, yeah, why did that happen?
And so you're kind of just like, was she like absorbing her friends to like get their powers? Like, it's just like really confusing on like what the narrative they're trying to push is. There's just no central idea, and they don't tell you any of it either. You know, they really do just leave it so open-ended that you can interpret the movie in like multiple different ways.
Grayson, how would you say this one, in terms of the acting, compared to prior?
You set me up for this one. This was maybe the worst acting. Listen, none of these movies have been stellar, but this might be the worst acting of almost any movie I think I've seen, especially the previous ones in this series. I mean, to be fair, having watched the extras, where there was sometimes no script, sometimes no director, I understand that, you know, the actors may have struggled a little bit, but that being said, and it was poor throughout. I can't think of a single time where I was like, beyond maybe Freddy's, you know, iconic sort of flair, I can't think of any other character where I was like, this was well acted.
And
I think there's one scene with Debbie where it was like obvious that she was the best actress in the scene.
yeah, well,
Especially like, compared to the other people.
I guess what sticks out to me is, like, if I would call the other movies we've watched maybe sort of like soap opera acting, where like it's pretty bad and like over dramatic, but like it has a sort of charm to it. The acting here is just like nobody's trying, you know. More,
Yeah, I've seen better effort and better acting from
like a commercial.
community college theater groups. Like,
Yeah,
it was very bland.
very amateurish. And what didn't help is we couldn't tell for sure, but from some of the reading, and it sounded like this, it looked like this, that maybe the whole movie got like redubbed, where after the fact all the actors came in and recorded their lines to like put over what was filmed, which maybe is part of it, if like, you know, you just don't have the like excitement of actually being there on set, like doing the scenes and saying it. Like, you come back into a studio later and just record all your lines. I
cannot believe they redubbed some of these lines. I haven't seen that in like an all English production almost ever, I want to say.
No, it stuck out too, right? Like, it was
obvious from the beginning.
Yeah, you know, lip movements didn't quite match up, and like the audio quality was just different. Like, you know, I joked that maybe they just like forgot to turn the mic on or something when they were filming, but like it sounds like with this production that might have actually happened. Like, the audio guy,
They didn't have a mic to record with.
the audio guy was on strike that day
Yeah.
with the Writers Guild. Listen, you know, being honest, the summary I'm sure was chaotic, but that captures the movie well. Watching this movie, you won't get a better explanation of what happens, because there isn't one. It's just sort of scenes stitched together to show you some cool special effects every 25 minutes or so for an hour and a half. But with that, I do feel like probably just a good time to just a general short thought from each of you. Like, what did you just takeaways from this movie, like, overall? Like, did you enjoy it? Was it just terrible? I'll start with you, Eli.
I thought this was one of the most kind of creative and unique killings of any kind of horror movie I've ever seen. And I can totally see why people would like that. But, I mean, the story and the plot were just everywhere, and it made it pretty much unwatchable. Not a very good movie, in my opinion.
What about you, Reese?
The experience of watching it was incredible. Of watching it, knowing nothing about the series, nothing about the movie, and then watching the like special features afterwards where they just shit on it endlessly. It was incredible. I don't think I'd ever rewatch it. That's not true. I might rewatch. I think it's like so bad it's good, I think, is the category it falls in for me. It was fun to like dig on, I think, is my takeaway.
What about you, Grayson?
I think similarly, I think this might be my least favorite of the movies so far. I think it was incredibly chaotic, and I don't think that made it better. However, again, I think watching it with everybody was very enjoyable. Again, the pacing was just miserable. There's the one scene where the camera was spinning, and my head started hurting after that one. Not that that was inherently made the movie worse, but it's just another like questionable decision that just kind of added on to it, I think. So I don't know. I didn't think it was, it wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen. It won't be probably in my bottom 5 when I'm dead, but it certainly was not great, and I don't think I'll be rewatching it.
Well, Grayson, it will have to be in your bottom 5 because you've only seen 5 movies ever, obviously. But I basically in the same boat. I think what made this one worse, like it was a great experience watching with you guys, but if I'm thinking of all the 4 that we've now watched, this is probably the only one I wouldn't throw on to just watch on my own. Like, I could see myself going back and rewatching any of the other ones, like just me, or putting on the TV in the background or whatever. But this one felt like the experience of being like, what the hell's happening with the 3 of you is what made it enjoyable. So
yeah, well, it was such a trip, you almost have to have somebody there just so you can look at them and be like, are you seeing what I am seeing here? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like I think the on my own watching it would be more of like a, yeah, this just kind of sucks versus this is funny and fun like it was.
Yeah, I found myself laughing at that movie more than I was ever scared or shocked or anything you would associate with a scary movie.
I was gonna say, was there any moment you guys would say you were like creeped out in the whole thing?
I was kind of disgusted when her arms snapped, like as she was becoming that cockroach. That special effects were pretty visceral, I would say, but it was more of like a disgust.
Yeah,
but that was about it.
That's where I'm at too. Reese, would you say that?
I'm trying. Yeah, I can't think of any. No, I got nothing.
Yeah, which I mean, it's kind of been a trend in these. Like, I think the creepiest one that we've seen was probably the first one we watched, and again, it was more just like a little tense at times, rather than like outright scary at any point. And I don't really feel like any of them have been that. So, I mean, maybe it's gonna happen the next one we watch, or the one before that, or whatever, and suddenly we're gonna be terrified. But so far, they've been more when something does happen that's a little like it's a little grosser than it is actually like a frightening thing. But with that, we can move on to our next trademark copyright section. I will sue you if you use this. What's going to have already happened? What do you guys think happened in the movie before this that you need to understand this movie?
I think it's pretty obvious there's already some precedent about them having beaten Freddy. You hear Kristen say it many times, like, I've already beaten you. She's more outraged, I think, than he's back than scared. I think she's kind of just angry the whole movie. And I think in the previous movie, we'll see Kincaid, Joey, and Kristen beat him. And I honestly don't know what more than that. But hopefully the kills the effects are just as good, because the effects in this movie were phenomenal. They were all, done, I think, incredibly well.
What about you, Reese? Any?
Yeah, I think definitely the trio are gonna beat him. They're also like, Kristen's mom shows up for like really 2 scenes, and Chris is like, I can't believe you. If only you hadn't killed Freddy, which I always thought they killed him like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
But I guess it sounds like it was like 20 or something. Like they just did it. So maybe we'll see that. Maybe Kristen's mom will show up more, because you're like expected to know that she's supposed to, or like know her character beforehand. So when she suddenly shows up in this one scene and then slips sleeping pills and her daughter's water, then that's the sister like, yeah, that's the thing she'd do. That's my prediction.
Eli, I have a very specific question for you.
Alrighty.
Kincaid at the start was like, Freddy can't come back. We killed and consecrated him, I think is what he said. Or buried and consecrated him.
I think you're right, yeah.
How do they consecrate him? What do they do?
Man, that is a great question. Well, I'm going to guess it has something to do with like the Bible or holy water or something. I mean, the movie opened up with a Bible verse, which
That is true.
makes me think that they use that. And it looks like he comes from hell too, so it would make me think that they've killed him with some kind of like holiness, whether it be water or a Bible. So I wonder if they like kill him in the dream or kill him in real life. Like they pull him out of the dream or something, and then they do some like ritual or they little sing and dance for Jesus, and it kills him.
I hope there's a sing and dance for Jesus, and that would make that a great time.
They all start getting in a circle. Jesus loves me, yes I know, for the Bible tells me so.
I'm waiting for. If that doesn't happen, I'm gonna be.
Freddy just starts melting like the Wicked Witch of the West.
I think I would melt if people got in a circle and chanted that around me. That'd be frankly terrifying.
I'm gonna be pissed if that doesn't happen now. So from there, I think we kind of described all the kills already. So normally when we rank our kills, we kind of go into the description of them. And also there are just so many here, most of which are uninteresting. I'm just going to go through and ask you all to quickly say your top 2 and then which one you thought was the worst. So Grayson, I'll start with you.
Okay. I think Freddy was by far the best. Him getting torn apart, all the special effects around that, I mean, just beautifully done, truly. And I think it was, we've seen a lot of Freddy deaths now. This is the 4th one, I believe. They're all very long and drawn out, and drawn out well, I would say. It's not, too much. But this one especially I thought was well done. It was just the hands coming out, and all the things they do to make it with practical effects was well done. And the second one, this might be a little controversial. I actually put Sheila as second, because the effect of Freddy just straight up kissing Sheila and sucking her soul out and making her this lifeless husk, like the effect was amazing. That was maybe the creepiest kill in my opinion, just because Freddy, this adult male, is kissing this high school girl and really going to town. I think that was part of it for me, which I was just kind of grossed out, and that was honestly the kill that shook me the most, I think. And then the worst one, I think, was Kincaid, simply because it was just the one that had nothing going on. Like in the car sort of park, he got stabbed, but then he appears in his bed and he just does this kind of gasp. That was pretty poorly acted. I don't want to pick on the actor too much, but he kind of just does a and like looks at the camera and then just closes his eyes and like lays back and is dead. And I thought that was kind of lame for a Nightmare on Elm Street kill.
Okay, my top 2, I had Freddy. But yeah, Freddy's was fucking insane. I feel like it's the longest one of all of them too. All like hands reaching out, one comes from his like head and like grabs his jaw. Second, I had Debbie's, which I guess is gonna be a popular one, because it caught me so off guard when her arm snapped. I was like, "What the fuck is gonna happen here?" And then her arms just like snapped. Like, holy shit! And then last is Kincaid, because again, I mean, it just cuts to him like holding him, and then he just gets stabbed, and it's like for the first kill, it's so like unceremonious, and it, it's like nothing.
Eli?
My first was Freddy as well, pretty much for the same reasons. Special effects were really cool. Yeah, no, it was very visually entertaining. However, my second one was Sheila, and kind of the same reason. Seeing her shrivel up like that was just really cool. I think they did a really, really good job with it, and had just enough level of creepiness to kind of disgust me and make me wince a little bit as you see like her eyeballs are like kind of popping and stuff. So the worst one though I actually put was Rick. I think that was such a lame kill because you don't even see Freddy. You literally watch him shadow box, and you have like a dubbed version of Freddy talking over the scene. And then you just see his glove float and stab the guy right as he starts winning the fight too. So, man, I felt like that was just a huge cop out.
Yeah, I mean, we all said Freddy is number 1. Obvious kind of body horror, cool effects. Can't ask for more than that from one of these movies. 2, I like Reese. I put Debbie, just because I think when he was like pushing the weight down on her, my brain was just instantly like, oh, it's just gonna like decapitate her, or so, you know? We're like,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
you know, she was gonna kind of let go, and he was just gonna push it down and like through her neck, head off, like. But something about the arm snap like just caught me so off guard and was just like so gross, and then into the like crazy cockroach stuff was just like so unexpected and weird. I think that one held up. And then, like Eli said, I think Rick was the worst because the fact that you didn't have Freddy there, it's like, you know, if I'm watching people die in these movies, I want to see Freddy doing weird stuff, not just being invisible. I think they missed out on an opportunity to stick him in a kimono or something and had him do some karate on Rick's ass. Like,
Turn him into sushi, cut him up with a samurai sword.
oh,
or
that would have been,
something.
yeah, exactly. Like chop him into a bunch of little sushi chunks. Like,
Right. Or make like him the punching bag and
Yep.
he like boxes him or something. I don't know. There's a lot of creativeness that could have come out. Because Rick was actually one of the most like developed characters.
Yeah.
Like you knew what he liked. You could kind of tell who he was good friends with.
yeah, he was
You knew his
Probably-
relationships.
outside of Alice and Kristen, the one that, yeah, exactly, I felt like I knew the most about. Because, you know, Dan, who kind of comes in as Alice's love interest, even though maybe he had a girlfriend, unclear. You know, he doesn't really get time to us to learn anything about him or what, you know, he's just kind of a himbo guy. Whereas like
Yeah,
Rick,
actually,
it's like,
They just picked an extra out of the crowd and were like, "Hey man, you're gonna have like a bit of a more major role now." Like halfway through filming.
he was the guy with the Jägermeister shirt on at the high school.
Actually, to quickly touch on that, to speak to how underdeveloped parts of this movie felt, like he shows up at the diner where Alice works, which was kind of a central point for a lot of scenes in this movie, weirdly enough. And yeah, he's talking to her, and then his girlfriend appears. His apparent girlfriend is like, "Oh, we're gonna be late for the drive-in." You never see her again.
No.
At the end of the movie, he and Alice just walk off holding hands, and it just felt like there were so many little things that could have just, if there were like 20 more minutes in this movie of just scenes that made sense and weren't just nonstop action, I think the movie would have been a lot better for it.
Well, and there were, you know, we kind of moved past the summary, but you did just remind me, like, it seems to not really understand how the whole dream stuff works, like, because of how hastily thrown together everything was. Like, there's a point where Alice has a dream, and she wakes up and, like, knows that that Debbie is suddenly going to be caught in a dream with Freddy, right? So she runs to... She just knows where Dan is for some reason. Is that his name, Dan? Did I get that right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
She runs and like just knows that he's going to be by the diner, and then they're in the car like driving to try and get to there, and you know some stuff is happening where they're just like driving in a circle, and they realize like, wait, we're still dreaming, and then they get in an accident because they're asleep at the wheel. But like, if it was all a dream, wouldn't she still be in bed? Like, you know, it seems to just kind of go loosey-goosey with like what's a dream and what's not, and like what are the rules of that, which might seem nitpicky, but like when that's the whole thing that your movie has going for it, it feels kind of important to like pay attention to how that's happening.
Yeah, like for Sheila's death, it's like they don't even fall asleep. It's like they're taking the test in the next moment.
Yeah, we have no idea how they fell asleep at all
in
with
class.
Sheila's death.
Yeah, there's not even any like them like nodding off or something. It's just like suddenly, bam, Freddy's there.
Well, and
Right.
with Sheila's death too, when that scene starts, the thing that grabs Sheila from out of the desk is like a robot
Right.
scorpion tail.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does not look like Freddy's hand
No.
at all. And so you're like, is that even Freddy? Like,
Are we going to see a robot scorpion dream thing? Like what? And it's like, no, it just, like, what was that? Why was that there?
yeah. Yeah, no, it was super random.
Well, with all that said, just thinking of like my personal score, I would say, for me, this was like a D-. Like, you know, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, it wasn't like offensive, you know, or like, well, it probably was offensive in some of its racial stereotypes here and there, but it wasn't like the worst thing I've ever watched or like hard to sit through. But like,
Wait, did you say D minus?
yeah.
Like below C?
Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
Well, like, it was just like taking the viewing experience out of it, right? Like being able to like laugh and like make fun of it with you guys. Like just thinking of like, if I was just watching this on my own, like the acting was bad, the story was like incomprehensible. It had some cool visual effects, but like that was kind of all it had going for it. So I'd say it was pretty easily the worst of the ones we watched so far.
Yeah, I actually had a similar rating. I give it a C minus because I did find joy in it, even apart from the fact that I was watching with you guys. But it was quite bad. The acting was bad, but the acting was almost so comically bad. It was kind of funny. So, and honestly, the nonstop action was better than having too little action. So I gave it a little bit of points for that. But it was not something I would watch again unless I was rewatching these movies as a whole, I think. And I think a C minus is, you know, not quite, you know, maybe barely passing is where I'd put it.
I think you have to experience it for yourself. I think there's a lot we didn't touch on, and then also just like seeing it for yourself, we can't do justice.
You're giving this like a participation grade.
Generally how funny it was at points. Yeah, honestly I'm giving it a B because I think you get a couple friends, even though we spoiled the entire movie. You get a couple friends and watch it, you're gonna be like losing it by the end of it.
That's true. Well, I don't even know if we spoiled it because I still don't understand what happened. So
yeah. I mean, even if you watch that movie like 2-3 times, I still don't know if you could really understand what the heck's going on.
So yeah, I'll call it a B.
Yeah, I give it a D plus. The visuals were super cool, especially for the time, and you know, it did have a few shining moments, but overall, just no cohesion with any of the scenes, no plot progression like at all, and terrible acting from just about all of the cast. So I'm not really recommending it for anyone on their own for like enjoyment watching. Definitely a show maybe you have a few drinks with your buddies and you watch or something.
A few beers maybe.
Yeah, because I definitely think it's really funny if you look at it from a really comedic point of view.
Well, I gotta say I have a coworker who always says that I just like everything. I have no standards when it comes to media, so I take some pride in that I had the lowest the lowest personal score on this one.
I do think we should have these guests again, though. This was a particularly good time, I think.
Yeah, especially since the next one is so integral to this. Maybe? Question mark.
That's what
I definitely. If I'm not on the podcast, I definitely like to at least watch the movie because, man, I really hope that 3 is gonna give us like all of the missing pieces that we just don't understand for 4. Like, it'd be really awesome if 3 just comes in clutch and somehow glues this mess back together. But I'm not holding a lot of hope. I'm not gonna lie.
I will laugh.
Especially this is the most popular one.
If it turns out the 3 is just like totally different characters, like it's just not connected at all, and like this movie really is just that much of a cluster.
Oh man!
The trio in this movie, they
like he doesn't even die.
Yeah,
completely different. Like there's something in between that they don't show you.
You had to watch the special features, the end credit scenes of the movie in theaters. That was it. That's all they gave you.
You actually don't understand the plot unless you watch the special features. That's where the plot is of the movie.
Ironically, the special features probably put more understanding to the plot than any of the movies in this series ever could.
If
just them telling us this thing was rushed and it was bad, it spoke just so many words. To what this movie really was.
If you watch this movie and you're listening to this and you're like, wow, this sounds like an absolute goddamn mess, like I want to watch this, one, it's not on HBO Max like the other ones are, so you have to buy it. But if you buy it, seriously watch his special features. They were
Please.
so funny.
Please, I'd be willing to do a mini episode just on those special features. I mean, they were better than the movie by far.
There was one where a visual effects artist guy was talking about working on this movie, and in the entire shot of him talking about it, there's this prosthetic Freddy behind his shoulder that has like, it looks like a meth addict. Like his eyes are just like bulging out of his head, and it's like the weirdest looking thing, and it's in it with him the whole shot. It was just absolutely hilarious. It killed me just seeing that.
Oh yeah,
stupid Freddy face.
Seeing a coked out Freddy Cougar just right behind this guy's shoulder was
as he's just like
goofiest thing.
Oh yeah, working on this was really great, and
yeah,
really, just.
He's like the whitest nerd out there, and there's just this crazy looking Freddy Cougar statue behind him. Man, what somebody had to go through the stages of like, yeah, we have to do the interview right in front of the Freddy Cougar or the Freddy that's cracked out here.
I like to imagine there was some like producer that like sent a camera guy to like, hey, like here's some interview questions, like can you get some footage of like these people talking? I'm like, get some like nice professional shots, whatever. The guy's like, yeah, okay. And he brings back this footage, and the producer guy watching is just like, God damn it, like what the hell? Like what is this? Like,
he's like, I'm not paying the bus fee to get you back to the studio, so we're just gonna use this. Like,
man. Well, thank you all for hopping on this as we're now 4 episodes deep into. We're over halfway now officially. And at our current rate of reducing episodes, we'll be back with the next one in probably 3 years or so.
2025, I think is reasonable.
Yeah, and we'll have 9 guests as the exponential rate of guest appearances keep increasing. As apparently we watch and discuss what might be the best in the franchise, according to some of the special features. That being...
They're really hyping up that movie, yeah.
Yeah. So tune in next time as we watch...
A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
Rick, you little meatball. I love soul food.